Let me begin with a little truth that may sting before it saves you. You don't get rich by chance, you get rich by change. And not change out there, the economy, the politicians, the markets. No. The change in here, the change in you. Now let's be honest. Most people wake up every day worried about money. They go to work not for passion, but for panic. They don't live, they survive. But what if I told you that wealth is not a destination, it's a decision? That the chains of financial worry are not made of steel, but made of thought? You see, the tragedy of life is not a lack of money. It's the lack of philosophy that builds it. And today, I want to show you that if you do just this one thing, you may never again lose sleep over money. Not because you won the lottery, but because you finally started thinking like the person who could create it. I've met so many people over the years who say, if only I had more money, all my problems would be solved. But I'll tell you something. Having more money doesn't fix a poor mindset. It only magnifies it. What most people need isn't more cash, it's more clarity. And clarity begins with education. Not formal education, life education. Financial education. See, you can graduate top of your class and still be flat broke if you never learned how money moves, how wealth is created, and how to position yourself to receive it. I used to think the secret to wealth was just working harder. So I did. I worked long hours, multiple jobs, weekends, nights, and guess what? I was still broke. I was broke with blisters. Why? Because I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't understand assets, leverage, systems, or value exchange. I didn't understand the rules of the game, yet I was trying to play in the big leagues. That's like trying to win a chess tournament when you don't even know how the bishop moves. It's not bad luck, it's just bad preparation. One day, someone challenged me. They said, if your best thinking got you here, maybe it's time for new thinking. That stung, but they were right. I picked up a few books, not just any books, but the kind that teach you how money works, how the wealthy think, how the laws of value and compensation operate. And something shifted. I started to see things I couldn't unsee. I stopped blaming and started building. I realized you don't get wealthy by accident, you get wealthy by design. But design requires knowledge, and knowledge requires humility. You've got to be willing to admit that what you know might not be enough. The ancient Stoics used to say, he who knows not and knows not that he knows not is a fool. That used to be me. So here's what I've learned. Your bank account is a reflection of your philosophy, not your potential. Change your philosophy, and your finances will follow. You'll stop chasing dollars and start attracting them. After I started feeding my mind with the right information, I realized something else. All the knowledge in the world is no good if it's not aimed at something. And that's where most people slip. They're busy, they're working, they're running in every direction, but they have no target. They want more money, sure, but they haven't defined how much, by when, or why. That's like telling a ship to set sail without a compass. Winds may blow, but it'll never arrive. Let me tell you something from my own experience. When I was struggling, a mentor once asked me, what do you really want financially? And I shrugged. I said, I don't know, just more. He said, more? Here's $1 now, you've got more. Is that enough? I laughed, but I got the point. If you don't set a clear financial goal, you'll end up accepting whatever life hands you. And life has a habit of handing out scraps to the unfocused. So I got serious. I pulled out a card and wrote on it, I'm so happy and grateful now that I've earned $25,000. That was more than 6 times what I was making at the time. But something happened the moment I wrote it. I had a direction. I had a purpose. And every day I read that card. I didn't know how it would happen. I just knew why. It needed to. And the how started to show up. Opportunities, ideas, connections. My awareness began to sharpen because my goal had given my mind something to work on. The Roman philosopher Seneca once said, "When a man does not know what harbor he is making for, no wind is the right wind." And isn't that the truth? You could work hard your whole life and never feel fulfilled simply because you never named the thing you were after. Goals give meaning to effort. They give the mind a mission. You can't hit a target you can't see. But once you see it clearly and consistently, you'll be amazed how fast the universe begins to respond. Wealth doesn't wander, it follows vision. Now, once you've set a clear financial target, something strange begins to happen. You feel motivated, focused, even inspired. But then you notice your old habits creeping back in. You promise to save, and yet you spend. You say you'll invest, but you hesitate. You dream of wealth, but you act like you're still broke. And you begin to wonder, what's wrong with me? Let me tell you, it's not your desire that's broken. It's your programming. Most people are not broke because they're incapable. They're broke because they've been trained to be. Trained by environment, by repetition, by example. If you grew up in a house where money was always scarce, always stressful, always tied to worry or guilt, that becomes your normal. You absorb that pattern, not just with your ears, but with your nervous system. And that program runs quietly in the background, like an invisible script. For the longest time, I couldn't figure it out. I had the knowledge, I had the goal, but something in me kept sabotaging the climb. Then it hit me. I was trying to build wealth on a foundation that was wired for lack. I had to go deeper, not just change my actions, but change my beliefs. I had to uninstall the old stories. Money is evil. Rich people are selfish. I'm not the type to succeed. And replace them with new instructions. Instructions rooted in truth, not tradition. The philosopher Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." That includes the thoughts you didn't choose, but still obey. See, when you change the paradigm, the pattern, you change the path. You start choosing differently, spending differently, showing up differently. You stop thinking like a victim and start operating like a creator. And when your programming aligns with your vision, your behavior no longer feels forced. It becomes natural. You're not stuck, you're not cursed, you're not behind, you're just running an old code. And the good news is, codes can be rewritten. Asterisk. I remember a season in my life when the phone rang more from creditors than friends. You ever been there? That uneasy feeling in your stomach every time the mail arrives or the phone lights up. It's not just the debt that weighs you down, it's the constant thought of it. And let me tell you, what you think about all day long is what you move toward. I was consumed by what I owed, not what I could earn. And because of that, I stayed in a mental prison for years. Most people don't realize this. The mind only has so much space for dominant thoughts. And when debt takes up residence, it pushes out possibility. I've seen men with more creativity, more talent, more energy, than they give themselves credit for, but they stay stuck because all they see is the red ink, the bills, the burden. That kind of thinking doesn't build freedom. It builds fear. And fear is a poor architect for any kind of future. You've got to make a decision right now not to let debt become your identity. Debt is a circumstance, not a character trait. It's a condition that can change. But at asterisk won't asterisk change as long as your energy is tied up in guilt, avoidance, and stress. You've got to shift your focus from what you owe to what you can create. The question shouldn't always be, how do I get out of debt? The better question is, how do I increase my earning power? Let me tell you, when I shifted from thinking about bills to thinking about income, something unlocked. I started seeing opportunities where I once saw obstacles. I started hearing conversations about money-making ideas because my mind was finally tuned into growth. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He was right. Well, you will. The numbers in your bank account might be out of your control today, but what you focus on, that's completely yours. So don't let debt distract you from destiny. Lift your eyes from the weight of what you owe and start building what you're worth. Now, once you've stopped worshiping your debt and started aiming your mind at income, the next lesson becomes very clear. You can't depend on just one source of money, not anymore. One paycheck might feel safe, but I'll tell you, that's a dangerous illusion. It's like standing on one leg during a storm and calling it balance. One shift in the economy, one downturn in your industry, one decision by someone else, and the whole thing can come crashing down. You're not secure with one income. You're exposed. I used to live like that. Back when I had one paycheck and one plan, my whole life hung by a thread. And it wasn't until I added a second income stream, just a small one, that I finally exhaled. It wasn't big, but it was mine. Something I controlled. I remember getting my first check from a little side venture and thinking, this didn't come from the job, it came from me. That realization planted a seed that changed everything. From then on, I built streams, not just a pond. And the more I built, the less I worried. Because security isn't in the amount, it's in the structure. Lao Tzu once said, "Depend on no one else for your happiness or survival." That includes your employer. I tell people all the time, develop a second income before you need it. Maybe it's a skill you monetize, a product you sell, an investment you grow. It doesn't have to start big, it just has to start. Money loves movement. And once you've got more than one stream flowing, money becomes less of a master and more of a tool. Look around, nature itself teaches this. The healthiest rivers branch out. The strongest trees don't rely on one root. So why should you? If you want true peace of mind with your money, don't build a cage and call it stability. Build freedom by creating options. One paycheck is financial survival. Multiple incomes, that's financial independence. Asterisk. Let me tell you something most people overlook. When it comes to wealth, it begins long before the money shows up. It begins in the mind. You have to see it before you seize it. That's why your imagination is more than child's play. It's the blueprint of your future. If you can't picture abundance, you'll keep settling for scarcity. If you can't envision the life you want, how will you ever walk toward it? People say, I'll believe it when I see it. But those who succeed say, I'll see it until I believe it. Imagination turns ideas into instruction. And the clearer your vision, the faster your decisions follow. You'll know what to say yes to and what to walk away from, because your vision won't tolerate anything that doesn't align. So don't just count money, craft a life. Don't just chase paychecks, design purpose. Because when you build it in the mind first, the world has no choice but to follow. The journey to financial freedom isn't reserved for the few. It's available to anyone willing to change, to grow, to decide. Wealth doesn't start in the wallet. It begins in the mind with what you learn, what you believe, and who you become in the process. If you want different results, you must first become a different person. Don't wait for perfect timing. Don't wait until you're ready. The clock is ticking, whether you act or not. Start today. Pick up a book. Write down your financial goal. Learn a new skill. Say no to unnecessary debt. Get in rooms that challenge you to think bigger. And above all, remember, you are not a victim of your financial circumstances. You are the architect of your financial future. You've listened long enough. Now it's time to do something with what you've heard. Action changes everything. Don't just be inspired, be intentional. The life you want is waiting on the other side of consistent, disciplined steps. So I leave you with this. If you don't design your wealth, someone else will design your lack. Take back the pen. Write the story you were meant to live. And make sure, starting today, you never worry about money again.